Welcome to Powercoat Music. In this video, we're going to talk about a very popular topic regarding the Tascam DP24SD digital Portastudio. And that is, how in the world do you sync other MIDI devices to it? Well, you may have seen other videos on YouTube that describe how to do this, but this video is going to be a little bit different. So grab your coffee and your tea and kick back, because we're going to look at an alternative method for doing this that is pretty cool. So let's get started. Now, as we know, the first generation Tascam DP24s, which are the pre-SD versions, had MIDI ports. Now, these were built in, right? So syncing to other MIDI devices was simple and easy to do with these initial Tascam units. However, the DP24SD model does not have built-in MIDI ports. So there's no way to achieve MIDI synchronization without using an external MIDI device that can produce an audio sync tone, right? Now, there are many different devices that you can use to sync to the Tascam DP24SD. But this is one thing to keep in mind. The fundamentals of how to do this are all the same no matter which device you end up using. However, the impact can differ greatly. Now, I often say sometimes old school is the best school. Now, to demonstrate this, the device that I'm going to use to sync to the DP24SD in this presentation is the Alesis MMT8 MIDI recorder. The MMT8 is decades old, but it can still sync to the DP24 without the need for additional hardware. It adds a ton of functionality to the DP24 with this specific setup. The bottom line here is, if you have the right hardware, you don't need a separate audio sync box. Now, with the Alesis MMT8 recorder, like I said, you can sync to the DP24 with the help of a specific feature within the MMT8. Now, this specific feature is called tape sync mode. Now, in this mode, the MMT8 can read, or should I say it reads, master clock pulse sync code. Okay, now it does this by reading it from a track on the DP24SD that you will record. Now, this will keep synthesizers and sequencers or anything connected to those devices, or should I say the MMT8 in this particular instance, via MIDI perfectly in time with the recorded information on the DP24SD. Now, what's cool is the older vintage Alesis 16 or HR16 and HR16B drum machines also have this exact same tape sync features. So you can do the same thing with an Alesis HR16 or an Alesis HR16B as we are going to do, that is syncing to the DP24 that we're going to do in this video. You can do the same thing with those machines, which is awesome. Sometimes old school is the best school. This method also has the advantage of eliminating the need to record drum machine or synthesizer tracks physically on the DP24SD, because they can remain sequenced, right? They're virtual tracks. You can also use the master clock recorded from the MMT8 to the DP24SD sync track to trigger other drum machines and synthesizers via the MMT8 and or your digital audio workstation if that's your specific setup. Let's talk about recording the sync tone. This is important, right? Now, before you record any audio tracks to the DP24SD in your project, you must record the sync tone on the track of the unit first from the MMT8. This is critical. Have to do that first. Now, because the DP24SD does not have MIDI ports, which we talked about earlier, the process will be the same. This whole process for recording the audio sync track will be the same no matter which type of synchronization device you use. You still have to record your sync track on the DP24SD. You know, you must always record this first, right? As a tradition, just a bit of history, this was always done on an outside track on the older multi-track tape machines. For example, if you had a 16-track multi-track tape machine, you would use either track 1 or track 16 to record your sync tone. Now, the reason for this was to keep crosstalk to a minimum of tape bleeding or anything that could negatively affect your sync track, because you didn't want to get that messed up, because it would throw your entire synchronization setup off. Now, since the DP24SD is a digital multi-track recorder, right? Of course, crosstalk is not an issue, so you can use any track you want. However, as a practice, I still would use an outer track because I can always point to where the sync track is so that I don't alter it in any way, shape, or form. Now let's look at the setup. How do you set this up? Well, number one, connect the tape output jack of the MMT8 to the desired input jack of the DP24SD. Now, when you press play on the MMT8, you then go over to your DP24SD and adjust the recording level. Now, you adjust the recording level on that track just below the 0 audio meter level, right? You don't want to put it to where it's right at 0 or above. You don't want to distort it in any way, shape, or form, or the MMT8 may not understand the signal. So again, you want a strong signal, but you don't want to distort it. That's critical. Duh, we all know that, right? Audio people, Mark, tell us something we don't know. But but the bottom line here is, one other critical thing is that's important is, aside from that, is you must select the tempo first on the MMT8, because you want to make sure that's correct, because you cannot change it later. Okay? Now, when you press play on the MMT8 to begin recording, the MMT8 sync tone will be sent out through the audio output of the MMT8 into the DP24, and you need to allow this to play through the entire song. I would give it some extra time, because when you hit play on the MMT8 and then you go over to the DP24 and hit record, you don't want that time to lag. I would usually give it an extra 30 seconds to a minute, because you may want your songs on the DP24 to be a little longer, but just take my word for it. Give it extra time, on the MMT8. So set the length on the MMT8 for much longer than what your song will be, so that you will have that additional sync tone for the DP24 in case you want to make your song a little longer. Now, when the song is ended, of course, you need to stop the recording, and press rewind to set the DP24 to the beginning of the song. You're now ready to trigger the MMT8 from the sync tone that you just recorded on the DP24SD. So let's look at some notes, some important things. The MMT8 does not have a tape sync out on-off switch. Okay, this function's always active, so you don't need to invoke it. Okay, when recording the sync signal, like we talked about, you want your signal to be strong but not distorted, and you have to really pay close attention to this, because sync tones can be very sensitive. Okay, so as a recording engineer, or you're doing recording engineer duties, keep this in mind. It's like, again, no brainer, right? But very, very important. So if the MMT8 does not see the sync tone from the the multi-track device, for a half second, it's going to stop. It'll go into stop mode. So it will assume that the recording or the sync tone is ended, and it'll stop. So keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons why you want a strong tone, right? So on your sync track, that is on the track you use to record your sync tone on the DP24, do not use any noise reduction or signal processing whatsoever. The signal must be unaltered so that the MMT8 has the best chance of understanding it. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now let's look at syncing the MMT8 actually to the DP24SD. Now, in order to do this, you have to connect the output of the track on the DP24 that has the sync tone on it to the tape-in jack of the MMT8. Now, for this demo, I'm using the headphone jack just to make it easy. Now, you can use the send effect output jack on the back of the DP24 to send the sync tone to the MMT8 as well. Now, on the MMT8, press and hold the clock button so that this display will read MIDI and internal. Now, what you're going to need to do is change this by using the plus and the minus buttons, and you want to change this to tape sync in on the MMT8. The display should read tape sync in. If it does not, this will not work. Press the play button on the DP24SD and the MMT8 will automatically start as soon as it receives the sync tone from the DP24SD. This is so cool, right? Now this will invoke any other MIDI devices that are connected to the MMT8. They'll start playing too. Now, the key is you must return to the beginning of the song each time, since each time when the MMT8 receives a sync tone from the DP24, it'll always start from the beginning of the song. So that's why you want to, press rewind on the DP24 to always start at the beginning. Let's look at the pros for this method. We'll look at the pros and cons, but we'll look at the pros first. Here are the pros. No additional sync box is required for this method. Cool. You can now sync to other MIDI devices through the MMT8 with the DP24SD. Cool. Now, sound module output driven by the MMT8 that's connected to the DP24 can now be connected to the inputs of the DP24SD for additional mixdown. So instead of recording them to the audio on the unit, they're virtual tracks, so you can record them, you can send your sound modules to the inputs that are not being used to have additional tracks on the DP24 for mixdown. Pretty doggone cool. So let's move on now to the cons of this particular setup. Now, the MIDI sync tone is a basic pulse code type of sync tone. Now, it doesn't have any song position pointer. This means that you must start from the beginning of the song each time. You can't go to any point of the song and stop and then press continue and expect it to start from that point. You always have to go from the beginning back to the beginning of the song to start for the rest of your project. For some of you, that can be a pain, and it was for me initially, but this can be rectified in a different setup. In order to use song position pointer information, a functionality with this method of syncing, you must use an external hardware sync box that has that particular feature, and that goes away. So that is how you actually sync the Tascam DP24SD to an external MIDI device using the methodology I just explained. That about wraps it up. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up and click the subscribe button on your screen now to join our group. We have new videos coming out each week, and we'd love to have you be a part of our team. Also, leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know what you think about this particular video. While you're at the channel, take a look at some of the other videos, listen to the music, and let us know what you think about that as well. We want to thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.